So we're just letting everybody into the room that even though I'm clicking admit all, we were just saying about the fact that Bill Gates and his mates have gone on to killing us. Like, obviously, why should we be special and not have Bill Gates try to kill us after what it is that we've been doing to their profits and their corporations? It was only a matter of time, obviously, before the effects of dissolving coronavirus and other unsubstantiated claims came into effect to such a degree that one of us was going to have to be exchanging, taking breath here in exchange for everybody else's rights to breathe, which is, I thought obviously that was going to be me. And in the end, it was so amazing 1324, also known as Fish, whose body has still been is still in the hands of the people that stole it. We've gone now head to head with the definition of coroner instead of corona. So it's all about the phonetics that we're vibrating to as we're speaking these words into creation. The system's still attempting to get people to write things down as opposed to record them live. In various instances that we've had shown to us just in these opening frames, let's say, of this supposedly new scene that we're supposed to have set in the restoration of the rule of law, which is what's being touted in the mainstream media about how it is that how we're faring. Let's say now we've severed the presumption of a contract between us and the Nazi system, all done obviously under the heading of Brexit. The bottom line obviously was we'd gone into the Epicratia on the 3rd of December 2019 after filing a kakadikia against the corporate state that had been manufactured in the title Hellenic Republic, which was filed as a private organization inside the Securities Exchange Commission in Washington. And that was the hijack and the hypothesis of the Uniform Commercial Code and Civil Code procedure rules being practiced as law, commonly accepted by the people across this face of this rock, on the face of it, looking really good, guys. But then, obviously, upon rebuttal, we saw it for what it really was, which was corporate slavery. So the definition of that being revealed to be unlawful in that pixel, let's say, on that part of the picture, that then went on to affect the rest of it. Now, from that point in time, what was in there, the Gregorian calendar, that definition of democracy needed to be redefined. So democracy, demons keeping you, is really has been the definition. Without having to look in any book, we can just look around us, and that's what we've been signing our consent to. And anybody who wants to argue with that, you want to section yourself into the Mental Health Act, because that's exactly what we've been doing to each other and ourselves. And blaming our imaginary friend that we no longer have got, i.e. government, God, it's all down to ourselves. We're literally looking at the back of our own heads at the event horizon. Fish gave himself up. He literally, everything that happened in the process of him assigning us the consent to use his legal fiction title in order to stand surety to the charges that were going to be implied to be applicable for an administrative convened court hearing, or implied to be able to hear a habeas corpus hearing, which for many years now has obviously been implied to be valid since 2014, 1st November, when it came into force, as you know, that we were supposed to be required under the law to have to rebut a presumption instead of the burden of proof being that of the claimants. So on the revealing of all of that, obviously it takes us to the EU legislation, supposed to came into force in 1972. The withdrawal and the retraction of that is what we see now. It is Area L being withdrawn out of the area that we know of this rock, recently called Palestine. The restoration of Coloumbs Law is the positioning where we're at the moment, and that's what's been going on for the last 13 months, which is why it seems that it was appropriate for us to now talk about this different counting mechanism that is becoming apparent that was in place using 4 and 8 Coloumbs Law, if anybody wants to go and have a look at that, and how we found it through effectively creating Sede vacante, vacante rebuttal equivalent that we'd done over there in Europe to that part of the rock, doing the same thing here. And from there, we found that the Church of England had made its own hypothesis in the same way. And there is, or was, a vacant seat, a vacancy. There was a void and has been in, let's say, the pocket of creation, in the field of creation that needed to be filled. Seems to have been at least 2 or perhaps 1, and the reflection of the other one space within this column counting sequence of 10 to the power of 10 that was being fractally reserved from our peripheral awareness, causing this imbalance that reflected our ions being out of kilter. And if it's just off 1 degree, then it's off in all degrees. And I believe that's what we're seeing at the moment, is the resettling of this ions in saltwater form, in liquid form, in etheric form, and knowledge thereof coming from that has been quite astounding, and seeing the effects of what it is that we've been able to achieve by putting ourselves back into alignment instead of off to the left, let's say, making the shape and a symbol of Q as opposed to the iota being in alignment with its with its circumference, with its source, which is the letter copper, which was removed from the Greek alphabet and turned and corrupted into the letter Q and given to the Latin Babylonian bollocks and babblers, which is what we've been, to babble ourselves into oblivion up until just recently. So the most important thing for us at the moment is the resurrection, let's say, of us as living, breathing beings from where it was that we were implying ourselves to be anything other than that, which is what we've been doing and compounding for the last 13 months. So it took really since 2014 to do what we did over there and then begin to replicate it over here. I was talking about this the other day with somebody, and it's very different here in comparison to working with, let's say, the next compounding of itself upon itself in reverse now, which is what we're doing. And I know sometimes it sounds like I'm speaking in riddles, but you really do have to, if you want to comprehend what it is that I'm saying, put the time into go to these links that are all over the YouTube and websites that are left, if you can get in there, to be able to go and see where is this all come from. This isn't my hypothesis. The speaking in riddles is why you felt like a simpleton, not because of somebody lording it off over you, but because we've all accepted the serf role, the role to play, instead of being your own lording it off of the lord of yourself off on yourself. And we all have been, and we all still do, look to assign the liabilities elsewhere. So even if it's now at this point in time where that's hypothesis at the time, where we're looking at the consideration of our minister's body not being dealt with. It already was. The fact of the matter is that if it had have mattered, then it wouldn't have been Fish who would have been there playing that role. So it's like he's given himself up for us to bash what's left of our own hypothesis and presumption about what things should be and how and where and why. Really redefining this definition of crown, and our crown chakra, and what it is that we all compound as an ism into making something appear real enough for us to be able to say, well, we did really well there. So capitalizing on kindness and love has turned out to be quite a good thing to do, even on the balance of what it is that sometimes you look at and you think that you've had to sacrifice, lose, give up. Learn is really what we've done. And I always said that we would always have our rights restored as long as we were surrendering them for the right reasons. And so whatever degree it is that we put ourselves out for, whatever degree it is that we needed to put ourselves out for, in the end, when you look now and as we stand in the middle of this reflection in both degrees of the positive and the negative, and know that we can spend as much time in either or one of those frequencies we choose to now, everything that we thought that we had lost is that was the illusion. If you're really in the connection with your source, then you realize that nothing can be lost, literally no thing, because we are no thing, and we had no thing. And so this new world order thing that has got nowhere to start from, except within our own crown definition, is what is that we define it as. So most people know about the King's Bench universal injunction that was filed on or around the 16th of June last year, that initiated all of this at the level that it needed to be done at. For quite some time, really since 2019, they'd been screaming at people to go and actually do this, which was to file it. I hear that some attempts were made for the filing of it, which consisted really of taking the COVID order and filing it inside a system that didn't exist anymore. And so that coming to terms with yourself, looking at yourself, facing yourself, realizing that the very thing that you were now, you are in the null, you're in the void, you're in the abyss, and you have to create what comes next. So these writs and the positions that we have filled, this Sede vacante of filling the spaces in the gaps of the constitutional judges, courts, when the Brexit exited our minds as a hypothesis that we were going to carry on to continue to credit became secured. That was from 2019. So really, at this point, at 2020, we could say that we already started off on the next spiral, compounding that freeing of the equity really is what happened. That which was implied to have been rendered useless and peacefully surrendered in exchange for the debt. As you know, for this, it's like saying, right, okay, you're saying that I've got a debt. Whoever it is who's supposed to be looking after the debt is not doing a very good job of it because it just keeps mounting up. So better that we stand up and take responsibility and buy my own debt, and I'm discharging it. And there is nobody other than you that can argue with that as a fact of your version of reality. So that bit really has been swept aside to such a degree that clearly anything that can't be substantiated cannot be used. And most people are kind of applying that finally across every aspect of their lives, even in a conversation with one another, the angst and the fight, the resistance to saying that I'm right and you're wrong. You can't prove it. So if I can't prove it, I can't really have an argument with you, can I? So the attempt to try to be superior, let's say, that gives way to the rule of law being applied equally. You can't sit there and contradict yourself about the rule of law being applied equally and then argue over who is more right than the other in a structure that you were all in agreement with that is actually our own hypothesis and an illusion. So why really taking that? Can you just put yourself on mute, iPhone? Somebody's just come in with iPhone. If you can just mute yourself there. We're getting feedback. Thanks. So because of what it is that we've been doing, obviously the effects of that made it abundantly clear that there was going to be some kind of discharging of some charges that were going to be needed to be done on all levels. So when fish metamorphosized into wherever it is that it takes breath in a thinner way, in a less dense way than we do here, because that's what it appeared to be, the ability to be able to breathe some other matter other than this. As he went to wherever it is that he went to, the aftermath of that left us with a rather sizable hole in the crown, not to the degree really of the court, because that had already been filled. We'll be covering that in the next 90 days through opening the Crown Court on a Saturday morning on the 29th of September, which caused this complete universal rebuttal out of this trespass that was become apparent in this man-made form of war and released nature from its prison, really is what has happened. And the damage and harm and loss that it had caused everyone was eked out against the body of fish. He was given something called Program Death 1. And this is supposed to be something that affects the receptors by coating the cell. In other words, the body is committing fraud upon itself. The body allows these certain cells then into its structure, where otherwise it would immediately close down the portcullis, if you like, it wouldn't let it through. Now, so here comes this thing that's disguised as something else on the face of it. We've got a cellular example of what's going on with Boniface. This on the face of it, it looks like it's good with clean hands and that you can trust it. And really, what was that? That was the NHS. So through what happened, and since we dealt with Birmingham, it opened us up into the definition of trust law. We went through where we came face to face with the lunatics that really have gone around appointing themselves as trustees of estates of dead people, while the people who they're supposed to be the trustees to are standing in front of them, as you know, while they pretend that you're dead. Now, that's why the Mental Health Act was hoofed out as some valid means of being able to detain somebody. That effectively opened all of the doors while everyone's going, oh no, we're letting the lunatics out of the asylum. Well, we're over here explaining, obviously, no, love, we've got the lunatics arrested over here who have been enforcing the principles of the people who should have been literally in the asylum. And you're going to now try and judge us based on your very limited education as to who, in the middle of all of this, is the one breaking the law while you've been going around feeding your own terrorism. So we had to deal with our own egotistical maniac self stuck in this prism of narcissism, and the story of narcissus who's stuck in looking at himself or herself in the mirror is a beautiful exemplification, I believe, of just what's happened in our omega state. We caught sight of ourselves, examined ourselves, assessed ourselves, had a look at ourselves, just couldn't move on from the three-dimensional hypothesis that we projected into this pool of captured water, really. And now, while you're looking at yourself, which is what we've got caught on camera now in these places where the universe has guided us to be in certain places at certain times doing these things for reasons unknown to us, but with our complete trust in that we're doing the right thing still. Even when, perfectly can comprehend other people's perceptions as they look in to this web that we've really created for us to capture ourselves within. And we're all attached in at different levels and at different points along the way. So our perception and our perspective is going to be different to that, which is what's going on well and around on the inside loop, if you like. So because not all of us have been given all of the information, and because all of us have been contaminated with let's say 99 columns out of every 100 with something like shit, but it's very difficult to trust that one column. But it has been the one column that is the only thing that was real, and it was our first feeling that initiated the thought before even the word came along, I believe. And those people who felt that, and that is withstanding all matter, and kept going, have seen the benefits of it. The people who didn't throw the towel in and quit and surrender in the last 13 months and before have seen the benefits. The people who even did do that have since, for example, people have lost the right of use of their house, so they thought, and then had it peacefully surrendered back to them, only for them to refuse to accept it. And so other people have been benefiting instead from those people whose right it was really that they gave away. And so it's staggering to see how quick somebody can retract their conviction in one way, but at the same time that the conviction was being retracted in one column or one account or by one event, the amount of conviction that fish installed in all of this completely annihilated man-made hypothesis to oblivion, and even blotted out the signal of the projection from whence it came, if you're watching about Beetlejuice. So the math, just the process of what happened meant then that we were able to have a case relating to the presumption that they make with the coroner, which is that the coroner has got anybody, this is the statement from the police, do you not agree that anybody that pops up in a community is property of the coroner? What? I'll fight you for that, I said. to rebut that, such a presumption. I'll get up and fight you for that. Because that one presumption is the one presumption that the crown, the coroner, the crown corporation, our crown, our ism, our crown chakra, credited and supported a belief that there was a hierarchy mechanism, and we called it crown. And it was crown court, or the crown, or crown of England, or it's got these different connotations and prefixes and suffixes and so on. But when you peel it all back, it was us. It was what we believed in. What did we invest our ism into? And unfortunately, we invested our ism into paedophiles who have sex with children, and even the women, like we were saying before, wanted to make themselves look like children, which is obviously if not more so, equally disturbing as somebody who would want to have sex with a minor. The fact that we were all passed under this spell relating to keeping these all as minors up to implied to be under the age of 7 through the SCTV Act, as you know, the fact that at this point where Fish metamorphosized and he was recorded as he had recorded himself all up until that point, his kindness credit account and his MFN deeds and his ledger rolls were stuffed full of amazing exemplifications that he'd done. He had single-handedly been responsible for the assigning of the whole of what was previously implied to be the Duchy of Cornwall, with every ledger, asset, right of use account assigned into his ledger and given a new reference number. He had at great length taken and considered what was to happen to his matter that he'd had the right of use of in the form of a body as a vessel, if you like that now, because there is no connotations other than the ones that we put up alongside our definitions as we enter the realm of self-determination. So Fish's matter, let's say, was then, after 3 days, they decided that what had been predicted, he could be predicted that he was going to die at 4 minutes past 8. That time was already written on his discharge papers 2 days before. They had tried to commit fraud in a contract by getting us to accept the discharge notice with Minister MFN and the date of birth 1166 stuck on medicine bottles on the top corners of the discharge notices. So obviously I'm not going to accept that, and we peeled them off, making a hole in the original document so that they couldn't make out that there was another and duplicate it. And really that's what we've done. We have put such a hole in the original that there can be no more duplicating of it, because you cannot duplicate such a hole. You cannot copy the rights of people any longer in multiple times, and cause multiple debt through multiple obligations of performance of multiple contracts that multiplied into existence without actually being there. So they all disappeared through that hole, I like to think, along with all of the false claim that the NHS had ever made relating to the fact that they had your health and well-being, that you could trust them to minister your health and well-being back to you. Fish proved that irrevocably that there's no way that any presumption relating to the NHS having any hypothesis of being considerate of your healthcare became apparent by them giving this matter to him and other people, pretending it to be immunology, when in actual fact what it does the reverse of cannabis. And instead of cannabis telling the cell to annihilate, it tells your body to annihilate itself. And what I experienced and witnessed, nobody should ever see, especially in any way, shape, or form. But coming from somebody who got such a connection with Source, and seeing what it was that he did in order for us all to be free of such hypotheses, was the exchange, really, to witness what that was, and to know that that had to repeat itself in so many ways by so many people previously to the situation that I was witnessing, was the real ministry of remedy exemplification. It was heard universally and witnessed in all categories by all people. When that finally had taken its toll, and the expected death then was recorded by the party who had abandoned her child through the birth certificate, then attempted to claim him and caused another contract for him with the terrorists in an incapacitated state. No problem. Off you go. Get the box ticked in your mind if that's what you need to hear. Yes, we're not going to come, they said, because it was expected. The expected death then, over the next 3 days, when it became apparent that obviously we weren't going to be requiring any interaction with any kind of coroner or coroner hypothesis, therefore, thereof, the policy enforcers who wanted the body snatchers, obviously, to have them discharge the charges against the body, came 3 days later and pretended to record the death then. This guy turns up and holds a stethoscope to the chest of our deceased, to our metamorphosized butterfly, let's call him, in the corner, and who was being taken care of, by the way. You know, he had all of the things that you would normally have when they've been normally shipped off out of your house and disposed of like a sack of rubbish down the morgue away from you, because I just couldn't possibly have my lovely son in the house now in this state. Could you ever have had your lovely son in any state? Well, yes, as long as he didn't make a mess of my Shackleton's chair. So that was setting the standard there. If that's what we are as parents and as children, to our parents, where we would just fob them off like we have done before, where we would take them out of the chair because they spilt their tea on it, or worse, that I'm not even going to let you sit in the chair in case you cough a blood clot into it. Then that really, that kind of definition of parent and mother has to go, and along with it did. So instead, the consent comes into play. Now, just because somebody might have bore you into being doesn't automatically give them the right to call themselves a mother or a father, as most of us have experienced as a child or as a parent or as a grandparent or as a grandchild. These multiple personalities of the phases that we go through in this 100-year bondage that we do to ourselves. In these 3 layers is what really this conversation was to be about the creation of this third reality, or the reality in this third dimension. I don't know how to define it anymore. And this is where it's come to now. There are so many holes in the places where there once were terrorists that we do need to now go and fill these vacant seats. For example, if you go and have a look, they are advertising. We are advertising. We are the Universal Law Community Trust. We are the Secure Party Creditors. We are advertising using the logos that were once used for employing terrorists through to terrorize one another with. We are the people who are the best people for the job of asset management, of assets that with that our mindset that we know they're not ours. We know that they are to be restored and maintained and to be looked after, like caretakers and guardians to these things, be that a tree that's in the way of some idiot that wants to put an HS2 tunnel underneath it, or be it somebody who wants to keep people living in the street while there's loads of shelter to be had, or people who, that are right for restoring the rights for people who no longer. Can you just turn your video off, please? Because you're using our very limited data. Thanks. And now the screen's gone blank. Who is this that we've got here on iPhone?
It's, I know who it is. I've sent him a message.
Right, because all of the screen here has gone blank. So, do you want to say who it is? Or not? Just, do they want to say who it is? Have we got a minister and phone number?
Yeah, it's Mutton.
Oh, right, okay. So these gaps that have been left need to be filled. So, and I can tell you, because I've been face to face with them in so many different scenarios now. We went to Worcester Crown yesterday because we were going to do, well, we did a ministry remedy hearing, like a discovery relating to how far it's got with this restoring the rule of law. For some people who don't know, HMCTS is separated now from CTS, so we've got Civil Tribunal Services. They're no longer able to imply that magistrates is lawful. This is where it was getting mixed up with the combined court definition, where it came in. They've got our little heads a little bit scrambled, let's say, where we started to believe that that legal was lawful and that we could go to prison for debt. So the discharging of these charges really was through the dissolution of the illusion of the hypothesis coming off the back of these acts and statutes. And by putting the whole thing into King's Bench as a structure, the ruling really where Justice Stein annihilated herself and everything else along with it that was implied to have been valid as administration seems to be trying to take a dying breath, let's say, at the moment. The numbers and letters that magistrate's case reference has is not apparent in this case relating to what we did with the Pegasus, with the White Range Rover. Now, for those people who don't know about that, there was an incident where we had been implied to be driving, where really that wasn't apparent.
Can you guys hear anything?
No, it's gone. Sound's gone again.
Okay.
We can't hear you, Owen. No, you can hear us. Oh, she's gone off.
Yeah, it looks like she's dropped out completely, hasn't she? Or I
Yeah,
can see there's an icon for 010, but
yeah, but she came in as another.
yeah, she did.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering whether we should all drop out again and log back in, or do we wait?
Well, I don't know if it makes any difference, really. Could try.
I'll just stay on for a bit. See if you can.
Yeah, just give it 5 minutes. See what happens.
Okay. It's interesting she was getting onto the Pegasus and it dropped out.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't like it often.
No, they don't seem to like anything that we do.
Wonder why.
Meaning they're like has-beens already. It doesn't even matter what they think or not anymore.
Mm.
Meaning even they won't have a future if they don't listen.
That is
Where they think they're going.
And who is they? It's us.
The has-beens who doesn't matter anymore. They can just fucking stuff it for all I care. We've already done too much to them, man. We've done too much brain damage to every single station of theirs or a railway station, because we just inevitably go and start traveling freely. So they have a big problem with that, and none of them want to take us to court anymore. This is one incident where one of the 2222 was traveling. They took him to 3 stations. The magistrate just wouldn't see him. So
Nice.
like, you guys are weak, dude. Like, they're so scared. They're so scared.
About bloody time. Turn the tables.
What's wrong with us? like there is a massive amount of people coming in, and just another exemplification is going to happen. But I don't even think they'll bother even messing with us. It'd just be like, Minister Moban, okay, screw it. That guy is correct. Like, let it be. It's not going to be that simple so soon. Meaning it already is, I think. Those guys just wouldn't. Like, the magistrate just wouldn't come. And meet
Wow.
up.
Wow.
So,
Brilliant.
I mean, that also, like, just, there's 1 or 2 of us at the time, just traveling on our own. I don't know why they would even try and deny it anymore. Like, it's lose-lose for them either which way they look at it. We're not stupid, obviously. We're not going to have controlled opposition talk to us and be like, oh, talk us out of universal law. Oh my God. they're so done already. They're just waiting for their own collapse now. So I don't even know how the BRICS is going to take off and stuff like that. Can you imagine? What absolute chaos that I'm. Oh man. And the other side, so simple. Just go and restore your rights. Very. Where is she? Is she? Oh.
It looks like everybody's dropping
Can
out.
you hear me on this one
Yeah.
now?
Oh, there she.
Ah,
If you can
Yep.
hear me,
yep.
they've
Yeah.
hacked the other laptop and the screen's just gone blank. So I'm just going to carry on waffling on here. If you go onto the CPS site, you need to go and fill the roles. If you go and read it, there is no Ivy League qualification because the definition of education has been dissolved. That's why nobody's going to school. The NHS, they're saying, is on strike, and it's been the longest strike for 10 months. Of course it has for the last 75 years because we've secured it. National Health Service was implying to be a trust. I was in the court last week and I got their implied judge, somebody still implied to be a judge in Leeds, claiming a title that they haven't got the right of use of, to try to coerce somebody into requiring their application or an order or an action that they then could imply some authority in order for them to have been rustled up, let's say. But instead, the fact that they had to be rustled up meant that the rule of law hasn't been restored, and immediately that anybody shows their face in those courts that you haven't assigned to put there, they are immediately in contempt of the rule of law and of that order. And then I got them to admit that they were not ministering universal law, and bam, at that point, bam, you arrest them, or you tell them you're going to arrest them. That's you doing your job. You don't actually even have to put your hands on them. Now, you've done all of that bit. You just have to go in there and verbally, with the word, this is what I'm trying to get to. They would like to try to keep it all down, being written down, and they can't, because it is the spoken word that's got the definition, and that we know whether that's an original or a recording from the resonance. And this is why everyone's like, right, so you don't need passports anymore, you don't need that anyway. And they're going to say, well, we're going to use biometrics. We already were, and you're already using it. We don't care what it is that we use system-wise. We don't care if you've got the fingerprints for DNA. It's how you use them and what you use them for. If you're using it to imply that I've consented to creating bombs, weapons, and war with, then so of course you're not having them. Got no right of use of them if you've got them. And you cannot use the ones you've got for that. So over the body and the matter of fish, I've obviously caused the scenario where they've had to take my fingerprints then. And upon them taking my fingerprints, because obviously he's a victim and I'll stand surety to any one of these ministers with my own matter. And when my fingerprints went on there, it came up unknown, with millions of names underneath. Unknown, but with millions of names underneath. What does that mean? Well, you are the liability holder in due course for millions of people like you. All I can deduct, whatever, assume, think that is where Minister then stands surety to all of you from not having commerce committed upon your rights. Admin has gone. Adding to the administration of the law has gone. Civil is away from being implied to have any reference or relative to the Crown, and that's what we got. The implied judge, or the party pretending to be a judge, falsely claiming to be a district judge, saying that the NHS is no relative to you. Now, anybody who's had any interference by NHS implying that it was a relative to you in relation to your healthcare provider, this order is for you. Anyone who has ever had a third-party interloper imply that they are your relative or that they've got more relationship with you, the Minister and the Event from Universal Law Community Trust and or Universal Law Community Trust, if you have made it quite obvious that you have assigned your consent to Universal Law, then it is that, even after the point where you have stopped taking your breath in this realm, that your consent will remain or be protected evermore. It will not ever be able to be inferred to have the consent, equitable rights, whatever it is that they try to define about you, by you following these steps that we have shown you, and even at the point of where normally what would have happened there is upon the death of somebody, all of those charges that they had levied would have been discharged against that one body, that one account. All of the charges of all that was ever hypothesized against COVID was attempted to be discharged against the body of the man who gave us the right of use of his credit file to stop them using our country's assets and our rights once more to stand surety to their terrorism for the next however millennia it was that they got stacked up in the icon gold time columns. Now, instead, it discharged the NHS to oblivion. And that's why they're on lockdown. We have offered to these jobs that are going, we've already been doing these jobs. These jobs, the government, the organisations are offering to pay our people 120,000 a year. We've done it for free. We've done it for nothing. We've done it because we love each other and we care about each other. And we know that if we look after one another, then being part of the whole picture by default, we all get looked after. We've got a different ism to fill this crown with. And that's why I believe that you've heard recently that the so-called Crown King of England has assigned the warrant, the royal warrant, to party implying to be Catherine. That is to imply it goes past, to be passed to the matriarchal. We're not having any of it. This isn't, I'm saying this because I'm a woman. This is, we are all one thing. We need to put ourselves, creation is one thing. It's got male and female energy. We don't need to be scared of that. But we don't need it out of balance either. And we don't need it to be confused, let's say, about what it actually came here to be. Because then the Keytruda mRNA corruptor works. That is exactly what has been going on. We have been causing corrupted cells to appear to be something other than what they are, and letting them in, and feeding it and growing it into hypotheses that has obviously caused this harm, loss, and damage. So, and it's to that that we're now really responsible for discharging these charges thereof. So we need some kind of meeting up. We've been giving out organic food to people. There is kindness credits, produce boxes, let's call them, courtesy of these corporations that thought that they could continue to get you to convert your energy back into slave tokens to then buy your food back from them as a privilege, which is now gone. For the people who are not very confident about going and helping themselves to restore their rights to their sustenance and the people in their community, then let us know. And we will come and open a little outlet for you, like we've done in Leeds. There's veg boxes and stuff being left at Emmanuel Church in the centre of Leeds. every other Friday and every other Monday. Sorry. And in various other places. We picked up the paper today, on Friday, in Malvern, relating to the fact that there is now an obligation of performance for Malvern councils to house the people who are sleeping rough. And if you find somebody who's sleeping rough, you're obliged to contact the council and get these people immediate help. So that's kindness credits at work in the community. The assets are now, for Birmingham, for example, Birmingham set themselves up called a little campaign called Save Our Birmingham. And Save Our Birmingham is really Birmingham City Council pretending not to be, getting everybody in Birmingham to, in their fear that this asset is going to be laundered and sold off by some non-entity to other non-entities, which is still going on in the minds of the people in Birmingham, that you had to go on this website, give them your name, give them your postcode, and give them the assignment of consent to act on your behalf to stop this non-existent council from selling your non-existent right by you using a non-existent title that you haven't got the right use of. So instead of us trying to get that message across, we had to go in the back office and discharge all the charges of using the legal title. So guess what? It's so funny. You can actually use that name and it's got no connotations whatsoever with it. We got the so-called judge standing there screaming, "There's no contract here," after dissolving any hypothesis that the NHS was a relative of ours or anybody else's, and in doing so, dissolved the fact that family court can initiate itself to imply to be an appointed trustee in the throes of stating, "But universal law is not a legal person." Exactly. Are you trying to commit personage with your definition of trust? Ta-da. And that was that for that part of the show, guys. The next bit here, what we've got, obviously, is it's yet to be seen. I'm not going to hypothesize what it is after saying all of that. I would be completely lunatic if I did. But all I can tell you is that it's done its magic up until this point. Don't let anybody else's doubt be what leads you away from doing what it is that you know is feeling the right thing to do, and never question that. That's all I can say. And it'll just keep giving more and more support the more and more you compound it. So the counting of this new 30 or old 13th month has come from this Coloumbs Law. The water clock towers that were in place allegedly in Athens had water pouring down them in these 4 columns that turned the inside of this timepiece, and they were using water to for their energy. So the flooding of the tunnels and all of that, I believe, was the rebuilding of the balance, not brings us back to the beginning of the conversation. So I've gone round with the spiral there, and so I'll stop recording if I can,